Lord Purr-Purr here. Lovely that you could join us. Today's a rather special day because today we are going to begin to read an entire book. And we're going to be doing it in chapters. Today we're doing chapter 1. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank and of having nothing to do. Once or twice she had peeped into a book her sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it. And what's the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations? So she was considering in her own mind, as well as she could, for the hot day was making her feel very sleepy and stupid, whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking the daisies, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by. There was nothing so very remarkable in that, nor did Alice think it very much in that way, until she heard the rabbit say to itself, oh dear, I shall be late." When she thought it over afterwards, it occurred to her that she ought to have wondered at this time, but at the time it did seem quite natural. But when the rabbit actually took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket and looked at it, and then hurried on, Alice started to her feet, and it flashed on her mind that she had never seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat pocket or a watch to take it out of. And burning with curiosity, she ran across the field afterwards, and fortunately just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. In another moment, Alice went down after it, never once considering how in the world she was going to get out again. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some time, and then dipped suddenly down. So suddenly that Alice had not a moment to think about stopping her before she found herself falling down a very deep well. Either the well was very deep, or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look around and to wonder what was going to happen next. First, she tried to look down and make out what she was coming up to, but it was too dark to see anything. Then she looked on the sides of the well and noticed that it was filled with cupboards and bookshelves. Here and there she saw maps and pictures hung on pegs. She took down a jar from one of the shelves and she passed it to herself, and it was labelled orange marmalade. But to her great disappointment, it was empty. She did not like to drop the jar for fear of killing somebody below, so managed to put it on one of the cupboards as she fell past. Well, thought Alice to herself, after such a fall as this, I shall think nothing of tumbling down the stairs. How brave they'll think of me at home. Why, I wouldn't say anything about it, even if I fell off the top of the house. Which was very likely true. Down, down, down. Would this fall ever come to an end? I wonder how many miles I've fallen this time, she said aloud. I must be getting somewhere near the centre of the earth. Let me see. That would be 4,000 miles down, I think. For you see, Alice had learned several things of this sort in lessons in the schoolroom. And although this was not a very good opportunity for showing off her knowledge, as there was nobody to listen to her, still it was good practice to say it over. Yes, that's about the right distance. But I wonder, what about longitude and latitude? What one have I got to? Alice had no idea what latitude was, or longitude either, but they were nice, grand words to say. Presently she began again. I wonder if I shall fall right through the earth. Ha ha ha! How funny it'll seem to come out among people that walk with their heads downwards. The antipathies, I think. She was rather glad that nobody was listening this time, as that didn't sound to be the right word at all. But I shall have to ask them what the name of the country is. You know, please, ma'am, is this New Zealand or Australia? And she tried to curtsy as she spoke. Fancy curtsying as you're falling through the air. Do you think you could manage it? And what an ignorant girl she'll think of me for asking. No, it'll never do to ask. Perhaps I will see it written somewhere. She has lots of thoughts, does Alice, doesn't she? Down, down, down. There was nothing else to do, so Alice began talking again. Dinah'll miss me very much tonight, I shall think. Dinah, ta-da, was a cat. I hope they'll remember her saucer of milk at tea time. Oh, Dinah, my dear, I wish you were down here with me, but there are no mice in the air, I'm afraid. But you might catch a bat. And that's very like a mouse, don't you think? But do cats eat bats, I wonder? Just to let you know, the answer is no, but go with the story, go with the story. And here Alice began to get rather sleepy and went on saying to herself in a dreamy sort of way, do cats eat bats? Do cats eat bats? And sometimes, do bats eat cats? For you see, she couldn't answer either question, and it didn't really much matter which way she put it. She felt that she was dozing off and had just began to dream that she was walking hand in hand with Dinah and saying to her earnestly, now, Dinah, tell me the truth. Did you ever eat a bat? When suddenly, thump, thump, she came down upon a heap of sticks and dry leaves, and the fall was over. That was a long fall. Alice was not hurt one bit, and she jumped up to her feet in a moment, and she looked up, and all was dark overhead. Before her was another long passage, and the White Rabbit was still hurrying down it. There was not a moment to be lost. Away went Alice like the wind, and it was just in time to hear it say, as it turned around the corner, oh, my ears and whiskers, how late it's getting. She was so close behind it, but when she turned the corner, the rabbit was no longer to be seen, and she found herself in a long, low hall, which was lit up by a row of lamps from the ceiling. There were doors all around the hall, but they were locked, and when Alice had been all the way down one side and up the other, trying every door, she walked sadly to the middle and wondered how she was ever going to get out again. Suddenly, she came upon a little three-legged table made of solid glass. There was nothing on it except a tiny key, and Alice's first thought was it might be to one of the doors of the hall. But alas, either the locks were too large or the key was too small, and at any rate it would not open any of them. However, on the second time round, she came upon a low curtain that she had not noticed before, and behind it was a little door, 15 inches high. She tried the little golden key in the lock, and to her great delight, it fitted. Alice opened the door and found that it led to a small passage not any larger than a rat hole. She knelt down and looked along the passage into the loveliest garden you ever saw. How she longed to get out of that dark hall and wander amongst those beds of bright flowers and those cool fountains. But she couldn't even get her head in the doorway. And even if my head could go through, thought poor Alice, it would be of very little use without my shoulders. Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think if I could, I would be able to do it. For you see, out of so many out-of-the-way things that had happened lately, that Alice had begun to think that very few things were actually really impossible. There seemed to be no use in waiting by the little door, so she went back to the table, half hoping she might find another key on it, or at any rate a book of rules for shutting people up like telescopes. This time she found a little bottle on it, which was certainly not here before, said Alice, and round the neck of the little bottle was a paper label with the words, "Drink me," beautifully printed in large letters. It was all very well saying, "Drink me," but the wise little Alice was not going to do so in a hurry. "No, I'll have a look first and see whether it's marked poison or not." For she had read several nice little histories about children who had got burnt and eaten up by wild beasts and unpleasant things, all because they could not remember the simple rules the friends had taught them, such as a red-hot poker will burn you if you hold it too long, and that if you cut your finger very deeply with a knife, it usually bleeds. And she had never forgotten that if you drink what from a bottle marked poison, it will most certainly disagree with you sooner or later. However, this bottle was not marked poison, so Alice ventured to taste it, and finding it very nice, it had in fact a sort of flavour of cherry tart custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and buttered toast, nom nom nom, she very soon finished it off. "What a curious feeling," said Alice. "I must be shutting up like a telescope." And so it was indeed. She was now only 10 inches high, and her face brightened at the thought that she was now the right size for going through the little door into that lovely garden. First, however, she waited for a few minutes to see if she was going to shrink any further. She felt a little nervous about this, for it might end, you know, said Alice to herself, in my going out altogether, like a candle. And I wonder what that should be like. And she tried to fancy what the flame of a candle is like after the candle is blown out, but could not remember having ever seen such a thing. After a while, finding that nothing more had happened, she decided to go into the garden at once. But alas, poor Alice, when she got to the door, she had found she'd forgotten the little golden key. And when she went back to the table for it, she could not possibly reach it. She could plainly see it through the glass, but she tried her best to climb up one of the table legs, and it was too slippery. And when she tired herself out, the poor little thing sat down and cried. "Come, there's no use in crying like that," said Alice to herself rather sharply. "I advise you to leave off this minute." She generally gave herself very good advice, though she seldom followed it. And sometimes she scolded herself so severely as to bring tears to her eyes. And once she remembered trying to box her own ears for having cheated in a game of croquet she was playing against herself, for this curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people. "But it's no use now," thought poor Alice, "to pretend to be two people. Why, that's hardly enough of me left to be one respectable person." Soon her eye fell on a little glass box that was lying under the table. She opened it and found it was a small cake with the words "Eat me" marked beautifully in currants. "Well, I'll eat it," said Alice, "and if it makes me grow larger, I can reach the key. And if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way, I'm going to get into the garden, and I don't care what happens." She ate a little bit and said anxiously to herself, "Which way, which way?" Holding her hand on the top of her head to feel which way she was growing, she was quite surprised to find that she remained the same size. To be sure, this generally happens when one eats cake. But Alice had got so much into the way of expecting nothing but out of the way things happened that it seemed quite dull and stupid for life to go on in this common way. So she set to work and very soon finished off the cake. And scene. End of chapter 1, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. We hope to see you all very soon when one of my Wordle Ding Dong colleagues will be reading chapter 2. Enjoy. Cheerio!